Hello, everyone, and welcome to How to Achieve 100% Board Giving with Jenny Hargrove. This workshop is being recorded and slides will be shared afterwards, so keep your eyes peeled for a follow-up email later in case you want to review anything from today. In case this is your first workshop with us, this is an Instrumental Partner Workshop. These are collaborations between Instrumental and community partners to provide free educational experiences for grant professionals and general nonprofit professionals. Our plan is to tackle a problem that you guys often have to solve for, while also sharing different ways that Instrumental's platform may help you also in winning more grants. Instrumental is the institutional fundraising platform. If you want to bring grant prospecting, tracking, and management to one place, we can help you do that. And you can set up your own personalized grant recommendations using Jenny's link on the screen here. Now, with that housekeeping out of the way, I'm very excited to welcome back Jenny Hargrove. She is the founder of Nonprofit Jenny, and she coaches nonprofit leaders looking to improve their engagement of supporters like donors, corporate sponsors, volunteers, and more. She's also the host of the Nonprofit Jenny Show podcast, available for download on all major podcast apps. Each episode features nonprofit professionals discussing different challenges that are facing the sector. And with that, Jenny, feel free to start taking it away.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is awesome, Will. I'm excited to be back here again. And like Will mentioned, if you've heard of me before, it's probably because of my podcast, The Nonprofit Jenny Show. I'd love to have you tune in for free or reach out to me if you're interested in being a guest on the show in the future. But today I'm here to talk to you as a nonprofit consultant and coach in development. I want to talk about how to achieve 100% board giving. There are a few reasons that 100% board giving are really important for your nonprofit, which I'll briefly go over. But if you're here today, I'm assuming it's probably because you already know how important it is to have 100% of your board members giving to your nonprofit. The most obvious reason is probably that major funders expect you to have 100% board giving. As Will can tell you, most funders that are foundations, corporate foundations, or community foundations, whatever type of foundation you're looking at, they require 100% board giving before they'll look at an application for your grant and their grant process. It's just one of the standard things that they look at. Just from a more practical point of view, for you as a nonprofit leader, it's also important to have 100% board giving, because this is one of the ways that you can ensure that you have stable funding that you can budget from with your nonprofit in the future. And it's also important to make sure that your board members are truly bought into your mission. I know this is something that I experience a lot of times when I host events with nonprofits. If you have an event entrance fee that people have to pay, they're much more likely to show up. And in the same way with your nonprofit, if you're having people donate to your nonprofit as one of the requirements of being a board member, they're much more likely to show up emotionally and physically to support your nonprofit in other ways, such as at board meetings. So I have 7 tips to go over with you today. The first is to find a champion, not only in the executive director or CEO of the nonprofit, who probably already knows how important it is to have 100% board giving. It's also important to find a champion in your board president or your board chair, you might call them. And I do see your question, Marianne. Let me grab that in a second. But it's important to have a champion in both of these parties because both of them have different responsibilities related to fundraising for the organization. Although the executive director and CEO has a more public-facing role when it comes to requesting donations, making appeals, and fundraising in your overall development plan, it's also really important that your board president is involved in this process because they're responsible for board development and making sure that board members understand their role as it relates to fundraising, including giving themselves. So I wanted to point out this free resource at boardsource.org. The link is pretty long there, so I also included a QR code if you want to scan this code with your phone to download this document for free. It breaks down the roles of a board chair or board president compared with the role of an executive director or a CEO. So I wanted to zoom in on part of the board chair leadership part of this. There are 3 roles I really want to point out that are important for a board chair to take over. The first is to ensure adequate financial resources for the organization. Of course, like I mentioned, your executive director or your CEO is responsible partially for fundraising as well, but it's the board's legal duty to ensure that the organization is financially stable. And one way they can do that is by donating. It's also important for a board chair to realize that their role is to build a competent board, and their role is to be in charge of board development, which means training your board so they understand their roles and responsibilities as a board member. I really recommend, if you don't already, in your orientation for new board members, to put out all of these responsibilities up front in one document so they can see all of their responsibilities of a board, as a board member, including giving. Now, I want to address this question from Marianne. How about 100% when some of our board members are in Africa and don't have money to give? They give their time, gas money, etc., for meeting with government officials and other ways of supporting. How do we count them so that grantors know their contribution? So one way is to track the expenses that they are spending, like you mentioned, for gas money. And another way to count these board members is to have your other board members who are located in the States or who have higher privilege, have more means to donate. They can make a donation in honor of board members that aren't financially able to give on their own. But if you're saying that they're already paying gas money, that's an expense that they can count as a contribution. And then I see a comment that says, I see it as the same as tithes if they can't contribute financially, time, talent, or treasures. That's actually something I want to address. It really is time, talent, and treasure. You can be giving your time and talent to the organization. It's also important that you're financially contributing to make sure that you have buy-in from the board. Of course, it's important to account for equity. Like Marianne mentioned, some board members may not be able to financially give. You can have somebody give in honor of them. You can have them give $1. It's important, though, to be able to show grantors and other major funders that the people who have the most behind the scenes insider access to all of your nonprofit's policies, all of your programmatic decisions, the people who are governing your nonprofit are invested financially in your organization, because it's a huge red flag if the people who know the most about your organization are not willing to financially contribute. And I'll get more into that as we get into our conversation a little bit later. I have some example verbiage you can use to make sure that you're equitably asking everybody to contribute. Tip number 2, talk about 100% board giving as a standard best practice, because it is a standard best practice. One resource that I wanted to mention is this book right here, The Little Book of Gold. It actually has sample conversations you can use with your board members to talk about board giving as a standard best practice. But like I said, you can also reference specific grants that you're trying to go after that require 100% board giving, because this is evidence that it's a best practice. You can also Google thousands of articles that talk about it as best practice. Yes, thank you, Will. I also talk about this as a best practice on my podcast. You can go to nonprofitjenny.com/podcast to listen right on your web browser. You can find the Nonprofit Jenny Show anywhere that you get podcasts, or you can scan this QR code here and go to episodes 142 and 143, where I talk about how to talk to your board as if 100% board giving is a standard best practice. Francine asked if the nonprofit has a membership base and membership fees. Is that enough for board member contribution that so that they've paid fees? So membership fees are not a donation. Membership fees are a purchase. There's a difference. A donation is made purely out of charity, out of generosity. It's tax deductible. A membership fee is payment for a service, which is membership into this organization where you're receiving benefits. So that would not count as a donation, as a charitable contribution toward 100% board giving. All right, my next tip is, this is a way to make 100% board giving more palatable to your board. It's to set a cumulative fundraising goal rather than individual goals. This is also a way to ensure equity so that you are not setting one goal for everybody when some people have the ability to give more and some people can only give, up to a certain amount. So in real life, this is what that looks like. Instead of saying every board member needs to give $1,000 every year for a nonprofit, instead you're saying our board as a whole will contribute at least $10,000 this year to our nonprofit organization. And what that does is allow your board members they can in their head do the math and think, okay, we've got 10 board members, 10,000, I need to give around $1,000, but people aren't dumb. They know that people make different amounts of money. So if you have a higher capacity to give, then you have the freedom to do that. One of the other reasons that I don't like individual fundraising goals is that it sets a minimum bar that you don't want to encourage board members to just reach a bare minimum. You really want to encourage them to be flexible and give a gift that is actually meaningful to them and does stretch them a little bit. And so those are just the equity and stretching a little bit. Those are the two reasons that I prefer cumulative goals over individual goals. Another way to make 100% board giving a little more palatable to board members is suggesting monthly giving versus annual giving. So for example, let's talk about board member A, Jim Bob. Jim Bob, over the past few years to your nonprofit, has given $1,000 in December at the end of the year, and that's awesome. But Jim Bob can probably afford to give more if he's giving through monthly donations versus annual giving, because as individuals, we typically look at our budget from a monthly point of view, not from an annual point of view. So if you ask Jim Bob to give $100 a month, you're actually increasing the amount that you get from Jim Bob every year, but you're making it more palatable for his monthly budget. This is also really convenient if you can set up monthly credit card donations, because then your board members can just set it and forget it. They don't have to worry about remembering to donate. You don't have to have awkward follow-up conversations where you're like, hey, you pledged to give $1,000. Instead, you can just have it deduct off of their credit card automatically. Next tip, this one we've already covered a little bit, but explain that grant members and funders expect 100% board giving. Like we mentioned before, if your board members aren't giving, it's going to be difficult to ask other people to give who have less information about the organization. I'll also say that when it comes to other types of fundraisers, like peer-to-peer fundraisers, it's easier to make an ask to give an appeal to your friends, family, close ones, colleagues. If you've already given yourself, you can say, will you join me in giving? This is the contribution that I made, and I want to, oh shoot, my dog just turned off my screen here, so I can't see what you guys are seeing. That's totally fine. I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing here. Like Will said, we'll send out these slides afterwards so you can get the rest. So sorry about that. So talk about it as if you're talking from the grant maker's perspective. And then my last tip is really to prioritize equity. It's to make sure you are valuing the people in your organization who matter most, which are the people who are receiving your services. So it's, for example, if you work at a homeless services organization, it's very important that you have someone on your board who represents the population of people who have been impacted personally by homelessness. And these people typically aren't going to have the means that other board members have. So that's when you have options of saying, can somebody contribute in honor of a board member who may not have the means? That's when you have the opportunity to say, you don't have the capacity to give as much as others, but we ask that you give a gift. This is the phrasing that I use with board members all the time. We ask that you give a gift that reflects both your commitment to this organization and to our mission and your capacity to give. And so then you're challenging people to give at a level that hurts a little bit, but that shows their commitment to the mission of the organization, but which also reflects their capacity to give, which reflects their annual salary or their total assets, whatever that may be. I do have to go off script a little bit since my dog took down my other monitor. So I want to see, yes, Will, that would be awesome if you could share your screen.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
Let me know where you'd like me to start.
Yeah, so if you can keep going down to tip number 6.
Perfect.
Yes, be bold and confident in your appeal. So this may be something that sounds really obvious, that you need to be bold and confident. The be bold part means to ask for something that feels a little difficult for you. So if you have metrics of what your donors have given in the past, what you can do is look at that number, multiply it by 1.5. So for example, if somebody normally gives $1,000, then you're multiplying that by 1.5. You're asking them to give $1,500 divided by 12 months in their monthly gift, like we talked about before. That way, you're giving them a stretch goal. It is something that's stretching themselves from what they normally give, but it's done in a more palatable, easy way with monthly giving. With being confident in your appeal, it's important to present all of the points that I just mentioned to your board. This is why we need 100% board giving. This is our cumulative fundraising goal. You can consider a monthly gift instead of an annual gift if that helps you. Now I'm going to be confident in what I just said and be quiet. So you ask for the $10,000 cumulative goal and then you be quiet, because the only things that you say next are going to hurt your case. They're going to weaken your appeal. The next thing that you're tempted to say when there's an awkward silence is, but whatever contribution you can make is enough. Or, you know, if $1,500 is too much, then going back to 1,000 is fine. That does not show confidence in your appeal. And usually that awkward silence is not awkward to the person on the other end of the appeal, because what they're doing silently in their minds after you've made the appeal is thinking to themselves, okay, how much can I give so that I'm stretched a little bit each month, but it's not going to actually hurt me financially? How much can I give before I need to talk with my spouse? If I need to talk with my spouse, how am I going to bring that up? So that is what I mean by being confident. You just need to sit and be quiet. Whatever amount they give you, you want to thank them genuinely, because that is something that, to your knowledge, is stretching them a little bit. But you don't want to walk back your appeal on accident by just being afraid of the awkward silence. Okay, and let me answer some questions here. Julie says, as a volunteer-based nonprofit, we have no paid positions, and including all admin staff. So does time, talent, and kind donations of goods and services and individual out-of-state travel expenses for all events count for the annual board member giving? That's a judgment call. To be honest with you, and this is just from my experience as a nonprofit consultant working with tons of volunteer-based nonprofits, it's not sustainable to be a volunteer-based nonprofit in the long term unless you are okay with having a very limited impact. If you want to be able to scale up and amplify your impact, then volunteer groups are awesome, but it's hard to have consistency and scale up your operations working from that mindset, especially if you have a scarcity mindset saying our board members are not able to give above just the travel expenses. What I would say is, don't be afraid to have this conversation of asking for donations above and beyond those expenses. If you know that they truly don't have, I don't know that you know that they truly don't have the capacity to give. And I think you're doing your board a disservice if you're not allowing them to take charge of their finances, if you're not telling them the need for your donations and allowing them to be generous. I think you need to think about your own personal giving. You've probably, as the leader of this nonprofit, given a lot of your own time and money. And that's something a lot of other people are willing to do, but they have to know that that opportunity exists. Let's see. Yeah. So Marianne said, even one of our Uganda staff has just donated $100 to the organization. That's 10% of his monthly salary. So yeah, so that's very important. Let's see. That is exactly what we are, but because grants do often expect 100% board giving, we tell everyone they need to give at least $10 a year, so it's easier to get 100% of the board to pay. I'll say again, just I don't like this low bar. If you use the phrasing, please give at a level that reflects your commitment to our organization and that reflects your capacity to give, then that lets people know that you're asking them to stretch themselves emotionally to think about how much they care about your organization and give an amount that's significant to them, instead of setting such a low bar. Because I am a person who can afford to give more than $10 a year, but if you tell me that the expectation is $10 a year, I'm just, to be honest myself, I'm probably thinking, okay, they don't need my donation that much. I'm going to give $10 a year. And then the other money that I've allocated in my budget for charitable giving is going to go somewhere else that really needs it, that has let me know they really need that money. Jessica asks, when foundations are looking at the average individual board giving, what percentage of their annual budget are they looking for? Jessica, I know you're not going to like this answer, but it just really depends. It just depends on your organization, depends on how many board members you have. Equity is something that's also very important. And so if you are somebody who has people who have less capacity to give, you can explain that in your grant proposal. But there's not like a percentage I can give you that is just across the board. Let's see. Marianne says, we have never asked staff to give. It's awesome to ask staff to give. If the answer is no, if the answer is okay, but I can only afford to give this much, then you've asked the question and given them the opportunity. Let's say we have some that give $1,000 a year. That's awesome. We set a low bar. That's totally fine to have. That's again why I'm saying the phrasing of please give it a level that reflects your capacity and that reflects your commitment to the organization. What ratio of staff to non-staff do you recommend for board composition? Paid staff shouldn't be voting board members. I do think it's important to have key staff members like your development director, your program director, your executive director in on board meetings so that they can give your board information about what's going on at the nonprofit organization, but and help that factor into their governance decision making. But paid staff shouldn't be voting members of the board. And let's see, Miriam says, I've never had a foundation ask about our board giving. How have you come across it typically? For most foundations, it's just part of their application process. It's like a box that you check, or you say what percentage of your board is giving. I'm going to take one more question, then I'll have you scroll down to the second to last slide for me. Francine says, sometimes it's really hard to find people to be board members because of the time and effort involved. Totally. Do you see financial giving an impediment to getting board members? How do you overcome this? Francine, that's a conversation that is going to really depend on your organization individually and the relationships that you've already formed in the community. That's a conversation I'm happy to have with you offline if you want. Will scroll to my contact page so that you can email me individually. But I'll say board financial giving as an impediment to getting board members. that this goes back to what I said about buy-in. Like if they are the people who are responsible for your organization, they know all of your policies and procedures, they're the ones who know your impact more deeply than anyone else in the community. They should be willing to put their money where their mouth is and give to the organization. If that's an impediment, then it's not somebody who should be a board member, frankly. And Hannah, yes. So if you go to, so Will, can you go ahead and scroll to the second to last slide for me? So I actually have a book club for nonprofits, for nonprofit leaders, and you can find the list of all of the books on my wall. And yes, Jessica, thank you. And all of the books that I recommend for nonprofit leaders at nonprofitjenny.com/book club. Every other month, Jessica's in the book club, so she can tell you about this. Every other month, we read a professional development book that I've selected after reading 5 to 10 books every month. I'll select one that we read as a book club, and we have Zoom conversations and Facebook conversations about the professional development books that we read. I would love for you to join. The next book we're reading is called The Art of Gathering. And it's about how to make your next gathering, like your next board meeting, more mission driven, more purposeful, and more engaging and successful at reaching your goals. So I'd love for you to join. And actually, I'm really excited. Instrumental is sponsoring a giveaway. So 5 people can join my book club for free if you complete the actions that are listed on your screen right now. Like I mentioned, every other month we'll read a professional development book. So you'll be entered to win a membership for the month of July when we read The Art of Gathering. And I'd love to have you stay in the book club. Oh, good. Rachel and Melissa are here as well. Would love to have you guys join and be a part of our conversations and just connect with other book club members who are all over the country. So, Will, I'll go ahead and turn things back over to you.
Awesome. So yeah, just as Jenny mentioned, if you'd like to enter our raffle, we're raffling away 5 2-month memberships to her book club. So seeing as we've got like a little over 50 folks here today, it's probably the best odds you've had in a while to win one of these. And so definitely submit some feedback. I think, Jenny, you answered most of the questions, but if you do have any other ones, feel free to type them into the Zoom chat. I also wanted to share for folks, in case it is your first workshop here as well, a little bit about Instrumental. I can show you something through Jenny's link here, but essentially, if you've never explored this before, Instrumental is the institutional fundraising platform for looking, tracking, and managing for your grants all in one place. And I think we've got a couple folks that may use this already. Jessica mentioned that Instrumental can help you flag out, which of the grants require board giving. That's correct. We can also give you a lot more information around some of the opportunities that might be out there for you. So I'll put in Jenny's link into the Zoom chat as well, and then I'll showcase for you just a couple of the features of Instrumental that might be useful when you're doing more research around some key people and things like that when it comes to your research around grants. So let me hop out of this presentation real quick. So when you create your account on Instrumental, you'll be redirected to this page. You can obviously follow along at your own pace after the workshop. But what's really nice about Instrumental is that essentially just gives you a singular source for you to just stay organized on everything. So in the case where you haven't already created a search before in the past, what you can do is you can essentially have everything organized in one place, where you can see there's an animal welfare project here that I've set up. And when you create your first account on Instrumental, you will be able to create a project. And that project is going to be very specific to the respective cause that you are fundraising for. So if you take, for example, my project here called Animal Welfare. I'm a nonprofit. I'm working on this respective grant, and this grant is specifically impacting both California and the San Francisco County area. So what I'm able to do is I'm able to tell Instrumental all the way down to the county level exactly what I'm looking for in terms of the sorts of grants. So you can see here how I've selected some keywords like animal behavior, animal food and drug safety, service animals, and things like that. And then I'm also able to filter down by the size of grants that I'd like, as well as the type of funding. So in the case where, you want to focus on project programs or general operating expenses, you can feel free to do that. And when you create that project, what's going to happen is you're going to get a set of active RFPs that you can begin to work on. The reason why that's super useful is because this is actual funding that is out there for you right now that you don't have to just wait on or wait until you develop relationships with. And what you can work through as you go through this funding opportunity matches section is you can work through why these particular opportunities are being sent to you. So you can see here, for example, in this Friends for Pets Foundation grants opportunity, it's being shown to me because of the match to animal welfare, as well as veterinarian science and services. It matches my project program based in the United States as well. The grant amount is great as well because I had that minimum in place for 10K or more. And then you'll see details about this particular funder and why this opportunity is potentially a good fit. And so it's all about finding you the opportunities that are the best fits for you. And essentially, what you can do when you are looking at private organizations, private foundations as well, is you can do more research around some of the key people in these situations, as well as there was an earlier question of how to get in touch with some of these foundations. You can get their phone numbers as well as their websites, all in the same central source of truth as well. So when it's possible, we will summarize some data insights that might be useful for you when it comes to identifying good fit opportunities. For example, you can see things like the different grant ranges that might have come from this particular funder, where past grantees are coming from. And the reason why that's so important is because if you ever pursued grants before, you'll know the importance of making sure that there's regional representation in terms of a foundation and who they're funding. And this sort of information all helps you make that assessment of whether or not it is a good fit, as well as how receptive that funder is to giving. And so when you save opportunities from Instrumental, what's going to happen is everything's going to be rolled into this tracker. And this is going to be a digitized version of what some of the grant writers in the room might be doing through an old school Excel spreadsheet. But here's why this is so much more powerful. Pretty much what you're able to do is you're able to set it up for different clients. In the case where I know we have some freelance consultants here today, you can set a different project up for each client and keep everything organized for yourself. But also you can keep track of different task notes and upload all your final proposals in the same place as well. So everything in terms of your grant process can be brought into a singular source of truth. That way you don't have to potentially be using a variety of different tools to stay organized with all of your grants. In the case where you want to add an opportunity that you already know about that you didn't find on Instrumental, you can also add that individually using the Add New button. Two big outcomes from this. When you set up a project, the first thing that's going to happen is that active grant search is always going to be working for you. So, if it's Saturday, it's still working for you versus, in the case where you had to rely on another team member and things like that, that might be restricted in terms of the times. But every single week, we're going to roll up new grants that are potentially good fits for you and show that in your matches tab. The second thing is once a week on Thursdays, we will send you a update email that will essentially tell you all the tasks and deadlines that are coming up. And that's really useful in the case where you want to just save some time and not have to keep creating calendar holds for different foundation deadlines that might be coming up. And the last thing I just want to review as well is that you can actually download reports. This can be really useful for both consultants as well as in-house grant writers, because in the case where your executive director that you're reporting to, or even a board is approaching you, asking you, how is it going in terms of your animal welfare project? Well, what you can do is you can choose whatever status you want to look at. For example, maybe I just want to give an update on the grants that I am planning or researching. And then I just want to go ahead and choose maybe, the current year and the future year, and then go ahead and create that report. And I'll have a PDF report that I'm ready to go ahead and attach to my team and get their feedback on. So all in all, in the case where you have never created an Instrumental account, you can feel free to do so with Jenny's link in the chat. She also has a great code that will pass over $100 off your first month in the case where you do enjoy your first few weeks on Instrumental. And our team is always on standby if you ever want to just talk about grant strategy and things like that. But other than that, let's see if we have any questions from anybody. So I will hop back to this. And as we were mentioned just a little bit ago, Instrumental is sponsoring 5 2-month memberships. So if you want to submit your feedback for today's workshop as well, feel free to use that link in the Zoom chat below. And I'll keep it open for a little bit to see if any new questions have come in. Hannah asked, is instrumental billed monthly or annually? We actually offer both. So the benefit of going annual is that you will save an extra month off your annual fee, but you can go monthly as well. And in the case as well, extra pro tip, in the case as well where you have a friend that already uses instrumental, or there might be some friends in the audience today, they actually all have codes as well where they can gift you a free month too. And so along with that trial, that'll get you 6 weeks, but you can definitely check that out in the case where anybody that may be a customer in the audience today wants to share their link too. And let's see if there's any other questions for Jenny. I think Jenny, you covered most of them as they were coming in. So we've actually done some good work in terms of the timing here. Jessica, you can get your link, your personal link, by going to your instrumental account. And then what you'll do is in the bottom left corner, you're going to click give a free month. And that is going to be where you can copy this link and you can just put that into the Zoom chat if you'd like to share it with other people as well. Good question. Reed is asking, I'm a development consultant exclusively for small not-for-profits. Are there rates for one-man consultant? Yeah, all of our plans are broken down on our pricing page. We actually have a consultant plan that allows you to create different profiles for your clients as well. In the case where you don't want to pay for it yourself, you can also have your clients pay for their own instrumental accounts and you'll still be able to access their account. And so that allows you to still manage everything in terms of the different clients that you might be working on. So yeah, what you'll see on the pricing page, there's a tab where you can click consultants and that will show you the rates in terms of what the consultants plans are. And Jessica, yep, you found it. Great. Cool. Any other questions? Perfect. Well, with that, I will stop the screen share so we can all see everybody's faces that might be live. If you enjoyed this workshop, please do submit feedback in the feedback form below. And we'd love to hear from you. Also enter you into the raffle. I'm going to reshare that right now. We are going to be back next week as well to talk about 5 grant research mistakes and what to do instead. In the case where you want to check that out, I will send our general events calendar coming up. And thanks so much for attending, everybody. Any final things that you'd like to share, Jenny?
I just wanted to let everyone know, I know board giving or just giving in general is really difficult and every nonprofit is different. Your board members have different personalities and everything. So if anyone wants to email me individually and talk more, I'm happy to do that. I'm going to put my email in the chat right here. But yeah, I know that it can be tricky, especially if you've never had this expectation in the past.
Awesome. And slides will be shared later today in the case where you did want to check out any of those QR codes that Jenny graciously shared. And yeah, any of the other resources that were shared earlier. In terms of the book club address, that will also be on the slides, but let me copy it real quick in case you want to access it a little bit faster. But yeah, thanks so much for attending, everybody, and we'll catch you guys next time.